everyone. Welcome to Apre Art House. Our topic for discussion today is human footprints, tracing its impact on landscape. As you see, the current exhibition Gestalt addresses a cycle of land use and the need to resolve socio-cultural conflicts between humanity and the environment, seeking beauty and balance through complex physical and conceptual configurations. Victor Hazra questions human interventions on land, our social responsibility towards the ecosystem, repurposing of unused structures, and most importantly, how do we plan the future? We hope that today's panel discussion will be able to address these problems. Let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us Gautam Kirtane. Mr. Gautam has dedicated over 2 decades to the city development. He holds an MSc in Environmental Science from Mumbai Institute of Science and an MSc in City Design and Social Science from the London School of Economics. His career spans public policy, think tanks, research institutes, corporate sectors, and NGOs, focusing on issues like waste management, transport, and disaster management. Passionate about vibrant public spaces, Mr. Gautam advocates for participatory urban development to enhance Mumbai's resilience and sustainability. The city is his laboratory, teacher, and home, driving his commitment to its future. Thank you so much for being here. We then have Ms. Kamalika Bose. Ms. Kamalika is a founder of Synergies India in Mumbai, specialized in urban conservation and adaptive reuse in historic cities. She has authored 5 books and completed her master's in historic preservation planning from Cornell University. Ms. Bose was an assistant professor at CEPT University from 2008 to 2015 and has received fellowship from the Society of Architectural Historians and Getty, the EU's Global Cultural Leadership Programs, and the French Ministry of Culture. Ms. Bose is an expert member of the International Scientific Committee on Shared Build Heritage and the Steering Committee of India. Thank you so much. We then have Mr. Nikhil Mahashur. Mr. Nikhil leads NMA, that's Nikhil Mahashur and Associates. He specializes in architecture, renovation, interiors, and project management. NMA's diverse portfolio includes commercial spaces, private homes, and historic restorations such as Radisson Udaipur and Fairmont Udaipur, as well as projects in Mumbai, Rajasthan, Goa, Indore, and Tanzania. NMA's work blends historical styles, regional influences, and modern designs, exemplified by the restored Apple House in Khelgura and Narayan Mudh building in Girgaon. Known for his eclectic approach, Mahashur combines contemporary and traditional elements to create memorable first impressions and impactful designs. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to now hand over the mic to Ms. Prerna, who would conduct the panel discussion.
Thanks a lot, Alisha, and thank you to our panelists for being here this evening, and to our lovely audience who could make it despite the crazy Bombay traffic. Right? I think I'll begin the conversation with a question to all. So sustainability is a topic which is often discussed, but what does it mean to you?
Sustainability, I think, turn of the millennium started becoming a popular buzzword, and got into our lives through so many different channels. And from being something which was trendy, it is now something that is part of everyday life. It's mainstream, it's not optional. As a matter of fact, it's frowned upon if it's not integrated into whatever we do in our lives. So we've reached a point where standards are established of what's expected in terms of sustainability, right? For me, what sustainability means is every day pushing that boundary. Whether I'm the government, it's going to move a little more slowly, a little quicker in the corporate sector, because corporate sector now becomes reactive to public pressure. And of course, at the individual level, it's the easiest place to bring about that change by pushing that envelope of what sustainability means. It could be anything. I mean, from how much I consume to my water use to my transport, right? Wherever I can to just push that envelope a little. For me, that is what sustainability means today.
Good evening, and great to be here and on this panel. So I think like Gautam really set the tone really well to set that picture. To add to that, to me, I would think it's really, if we start with the smallest unit, and that's also like if we look at small building blocks and what is our relationship as an individual to the city, and what is that footprint that we occupy, whether that footprint is, and by footprint I don't only mean carbon footprint, but not only from how we live, what we consume as an individual, but to our relationship to our immediate context, our neighborhood, our surrounding, and that then brings to the city. So if we are constantly mindful of this relationship, that we are part of a larger picture, and that's how the city is, whether it's sustainable or not, finally there is this interconnection and this interrelation between the smallest building block and the impact that it has at the largest scale. So this constant interchangeability of from the micro to the macro. And if we begin to consciously lead our lives thinking about this, which is not only about if I take care of myself or my family or then I'm sustainable, but what is that impact which is happening at all scales through our gestures. And this I'm also saying now, I mean, he talked about policy and corporate, there are multiple scales at which everybody can review this, that what is your own footprint. But I'm also, because I'm seeing like young youth in the audience, etc., it becomes also important to have this conversation and this thinking from a very young age, like ingrain it within yourself, not only when you suddenly feel that okay, now everyone's talking about sustainability, so now I need to think about it, or now I need to begin how to apply it to my life, but even in the absence of any such word or phrase existing, how are we still mindful about these relationships, I think become important to me.
Thanks, Kamalika. I think what you're referring to is perhaps, like I mentioned, it's a trend, which, one sort of starts following and is not fully mindful of it from a young age. Nikhil, would you like to add in?
It's long press.
Yeah, I think it's. So I'm going to be a little more cynical, about sustainability, unfortunately. So when it comes to architecture, everyone says that they're doing it, that they're sustainable, but very few really are. So it's the easiest word to use today in architecture. Everyone says we're sustainable, but are we really sustainable? You ask a student what sustainability is. Whenever I go to college and they show me their designs, and they all keep saying they always have a slide that says that they're sustainable. It's a sustainable design. And when you ask them what does sustainability mean for them, the first thing that comes to their mind will be a windmill or a solar panel. And that's what
Or a green wall.
Or a green, or vertical garden. And they have fancy words for it. But is that really sustainability? Because what we're doing is we're actually getting an architect to go and buy. I read away it's a nice way of saying it, that you're getting an architect, and then the architect is saying be sustainable. So he's making a bungalow and then putting solar panels on it. So what he's doing is that he's going shopping for you, spending money, and these guys are more experts in that manner. When I think a budget will be most unsustainable. When you have a high budget, it's adding more carbon debt than anything. So you're getting an architect, and instead of designing sustainable buildings, he's just going shopping and saying, okay, let's have a windmill, or let's have a vertical garden, or let's have a solar panel, and that's sustainability in today's times, which is very, very unfortunate. For me, you ask me what sustainability is, then let's look at the High Court, or look at the Royal Alfred Sailors Club close by. And these are buildings that have lasted 150 years. They've got a lot of cross ventilation. I think those are the most sustainable buildings. Longevity, I think, will make sense to be most sustainable. Instead of going and adding solar panels to it. So take a building in Greek, take a bungalow in Greece, or like in one of those, or anywhere, even in England for that matter, and you keep it in the, keep it outdoors, and it just got these open windows and open ventilation and verandas. I think that's more sustainable than making a nice glass building with solar panels and with so many batteries. Which one would you rather prefer to be sustainable? So it's for me, I think it's longevity, because you spread these buildings over a large period of time, reducing carbon footprint over a large number of years. So if you ask me, cross ventilation and basic simple stuff is sustainability more than the fancy words they use, which half the times I don't know what they mean, but I think it's more basic. That's the meaning for me.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil. But would that be how you draw a difference between, let's say, deep and shallow ecology of sorts?
Yeah. So look, this is too much of an FD word for me, to be honest, because I tell you, none of my buildings also get sustainable ratings. Though I can say that we're sustainable and we try to get rating points, etc. But none of them get that, because we're just designing spaces that are more open ventilated and stuff. So when you're talking of deep and shallow ecology, I think you're referring to maybe more biodiversity or more of employment, or what do you say deep and shallow ecology? I have absolutely no idea what it means.
So by that I mean, there are certain, let's say, sustainability efforts which are very superficial, and then there are other efforts which have a larger impact of sorts.
Yeah, so there are some which are more personal, and then there are some that you're doing for a wider audience. So I would say that the ones that are more personal, so I think which would be, deeper ecology, which will make more sense, where you're doing it for everyone around you, and not only for maybe the human beings or maybe for the thing, but you're doing it for everything. When I say you're doing it for the community, so I would also say that you're doing it for me, you're doing it for even, say, a fish in the water, then that makes sense. That works, but not only a personal thing. Which in today's times, when you do a building which you say is sustainable, which will be more for personal use, because there's a solar panel. I'm not against solar panels, but I just feel that an architect shouldn't go shopping when he talks about sustainability.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil. Another question, open question is, how does India's environmental concerns differ from the West? And what are the intersections that have to be taken into account while analyzing the same?
So today I strongly feel, and I'm seeing this a lot in the domain of heritage conservation, climate change, and even disaster risk reduction, which is very closely linked to cultural heritage. That there of course we have this whole baggage of looking west and trying to constantly look at best practices, models, and export oftentimes failed models from the west into our context. But if we really critically see today, the west is actually looking east in many ways. And we really need to therefore go back to the drawing board and see that what is in our culture, what is in our tradition, which is worth sort of investigating and learning from and incorporating as strategies for what you said, to help us solve environmental concerns and challenges. And if I just give you like two small examples, for example, many of you might have heard of National Institute of Urban Affairs in Delhi. It's a national body. And you also have a Rome-based organization called ICROM, which is for the council. So they have a wing which looks at disaster management at cultural heritage sites, which might be due to climate change, which might be due to conflict, wars, and other sort of exigencies. And each of these, so whether it's a national body or an international body, they are now looking at the value of traditional knowledge, traditional embedded knowledge within traditional communities, and in India we have a gamut of it, right? In all the length and breadth of our country, whether it's the indigenous knowledge systems, whether it's the tribal knowledge systems, right from the way livelihoods are practiced, agriculture is practiced, to how healthcare systems. So it's an integrated life cycle. If you look at anything which is based in a traditional knowledge and a vernacular, right from building technologies and the way you build in these contexts. So when you talk about this West, what can we learn from the West? Of course, there are things you can look at, and there are several case studies, etc. But that intersection would also, I would emphasize, is to look, because the West is looking east. So how do we then begin to reassess and identify what is of value? Because these are context-specific solutions. The moment we try to do these one-size-fits-all models and apply them across global contexts, things start failing. So we need, one of the ways in which therefore we can be sustainable is to recalibrate all of these lenses through which we understand how we can be sustainable.
Can I take that?
Oh, please.
So I'd like to come to the earlier question as well. I found it very interesting because I came across this term deep ecology more recently. And I think by definition, I had to Google this before coming, is that, like Nikhil said, one aspect deals with human beings and how to make their life sustainable in terms of lowering footprint and things like that. And the deep ecology part talks about the whole planet as an organism, and every life matters, and so it's ecosystems as a whole that we look at. Per se, I'm not very, I would be wary of calling something deep and shallow with such a broad brush stroke, but there's another term which I came across, which is very interesting. It's called spiritual ecology, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so then there are people who would be like, there's deep ecology and there's one layer above that. So you're like, okay, the moon is like, it's got its own power and I want to tap into it, and I think it's very beautiful. You don't have to subscribe to it, okay? But ultimately it's your commitment, right, to nature. You are saying even the non-living is something I must work to respect and then learn to respect and learn to tune into. I think it's a fascinating movement. It's also dangerous if we start labeling this. And there's always this little holier than thou thing that happens with practitioners. And I think somewhere, especially with younger minds, it's important to draw the lines and incrementally start working towards these things. Another way of looking at the shallow and deep part is, the shallow part is that which is compliance, and the deeper part kind of obviously is a little beyond compliance. The second question was to do with the challenges being different in the East and the West, right?
Right, so, yeah, please.
So, I think here it's very important for us to acknowledge that, like Nikhil said, right, making something sustainable is actually going shopping.
Yeah.
Right? Buy the solar panel, okay, which is going to have a payback period of 9 years, okay, and it's going to go into some backyard that's going to not be able to recycle that plastic.
The most unsustainable.
It's the most unsustainable thing. But it's essentially a function of how much money you have spending power. These are hobbies of the rich. Right? You can do something truly sustainable in the vernacular. It doesn't have to necessarily be vernacular, but a lot of this is greenwashing and one has to be wary of it. I think our challenge is to kind of put in the right seeds, filters, to say this is what's right for us. Okay, we are a developing nation. The average Indian can't afford to put a solar panel and power his house and through solar power. We are going to depend on coal. It's our reality, right? Where do we draw the line? Can we consume it's things like that. So the challenge for India, I mean, we should start looking at it as a subcontinent, because equally Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, they're just us, right? They're extensions of us. I think we need to kind of set targets which are achievable, but not under pressure from, you know, somebody like a Greta Thunberg. Sorry, okay, this is going to get controversial. But you can't, it's very esoteric to say, you know, you must like stop burning coal. No, I can't. I don't have the money to do that, right? Like, people don't have food to eat here. People don't have jobs here, right? People don't have electricity in their homes. So I think this is the main definition of this challenge for me, you know. Understanding what we first must do to come to par basic standard qualities of life, and then sustainability has its place, but not at the cost of human quality of life.
Thanks a lot, Gautam. Actually, you've touched upon the next question that I had, which was, how do socioeconomic factors influence the adoption of sustainable practices in urban and rural communities?
So maybe start with
So-
Nikhil.
I can take it.
So it's pretty much my last answer. But I think it's very interesting. I think there's pressure. I think one has to acknowledge it, right? There's pressure and there's judgment for being unsustainable. And how sustainable you can be is often linked to how healthy you are, right? And I think this is the irony of it all, right? People don't consider that when you're traveling in a local train in Mumbai, it's probably the most sustainable form of transport in the world. Because like there are some 30,000 people where 3 were supposed to stand, right? And the amount of electricity you're using is the same. So per capita, your carbon footprint is like nothing. Of course, when 2-3 people fall off the train, then your carbon footprint average reduces. But that's what I'm saying, right? Or I can choose to have an electric car, power it with a solar charger, right? Things like that, which the person who's traveling in that train can't afford to do. So I have to be careful when I'm judging. And you know, just to expand on this part of privilege, I recently came across something which I stepped out of. Don't have to judge the concept because I stepped out of it, but it's called the inner development goals, right? So at the turn of the millennium century, the world came together and said, you know what, we have to fix so many of the problems, and they came up with the Millennium Development Goals. There were 8 of them, 7 or 8 of them. And for 15 years we targeted across the world, everyone pulled in money, and where it was required, it went into different places for sustainability, for better water, education, gender, whatever. And it completely bombed, right? Some 5-10% was implemented, data wasn't collected properly, so it was complete failure. So then they came up and said, you know, let's review what went wrong. We're not doing this right, and they came up with the Sustainability Development Goals. Right? Isn't it amazing? The whole world comes together for something, right? And how beautiful is the United Nations. And then from 2050 to 2030 is the term of the Sustainability Development Goals. I think the 70, right? And we are at exactly the halfway mark now. And we have accomplished 11% where data is available. That's somewhere the statistic, right? So even the sustainability development goals are going to bomb and fail. And there's going to be a new iteration in 2030. And in the middle of this, somebody came up with this genius idea and called it the inner development goals. And the theory is that you can't have outer development without inner development. So we have to make better human beings, right? And I thought, how wonderful. And then I looked at what it meant, okay? And I mean, I don't want to comment on it honestly so much, but please do look it up. It's just as a concept of curiosity. What is inner development goals? There are these 5 goals of being, feeling, collaborating, acting, and things like this, right? And there's a progression to that. It's all very beautiful conceptually, but when you give it thought, it's not something that you can accomplish where there's a cutthroat competition in a place like India, where your corporate competition is so high, your job competition is so high. You know, your hand to mouth. You can't do these things. This is all very high end. You have spent your life well, you've got little money to spare, now you can do this, right? This is the problem of privilege and sustainability versus just sustainability where we can come in and play a role. Get up a really long time for that.
So I agree with you. It's so difficult, and also, you know, bordering on the first question, the earlier question, is that we keep talking about the West doing sustainability, we keep reading about what they do. And it's very difficult, I'm a basic architect in Bombay, designing buildings in Bombay, restoring a few of them. How can I aid the West? If I'm designing a building in Kalagoda, how am I going to get my rating points, which the West have decided? There's no way that I'm going to do it. I have a house gully which is, say, a 1 feet house gully right next to me on either side. I'm struggling for so I'm struggling for ventilation on one side. Then can you hear me? Yeah, that's it. Then I'm doing a building in Fanaswadi, which is in Girgaon. Okay. No. Okay. Imagine doing a building in Girgaon again and keeping the West, and it just doesn't fit in. So whenever we talk about sustainability and then the West, it gives me shudders because they design sustainability as tick boxes. So they take a room or they take a box, they take a cube, and then they start ticking in. If this is done, this is done, this is done. And when you take that box and you put it in Bombay, which is the most polluted, populated place in, I love Bombay, but this is true also. And you take it and you keep it in Girgaon, or you take it and put it in Kalagoda, those tick boxes will never work. And which is why I say that even if I aim to be one of the biggest sustainable architects in Bombay, I'm just going to fail, because every time I go and see that can I tick a box in the building, it's just not, it's not going to ever happen.
Hi, I'm Jalacha. I'm an architecture student from Kamalika. It was a very interesting and informative session. When you all were talking about social sustainability, about giving jobs to people, in a city like Bombay where there are so many migrants, where the skill, like when you were talking about Rajasthan, I think most of the people in Rajasthan are skilled in a particular way since their childhood. Like there's something common holding them together. So having the artisans there work for a project that you're doing is quite possible, but in a place like Bombay with so many migrants, the artisans, like using the skills of artisans, what exactly do you all mean by increase, like giving what job opportunities?
So job is not only about, even the chaiwala can make money. When I'm building, when I say employment, it could be even a chaiwala who will give chai to the people on site. So I'm saying overall community employment. It could also be construction workers that may be migrants living in the area. Of course, see, there are artisans everywhere, okay, and Udaipur has a set of artisans. Today, labor is very cheap in Bombay because of these migrants. So I'm not getting your question because I'm saying mainly when you're helping the community get money, it's not only the migrants that come from places. So if you're talking about an overall picture, then I'm saying that what you're saying only for Bombay can be done in every city, so they don't have to move to Bombay. That could be one solution. But I think maybe you can.
My main question was what kind of job opportunities, what employment
So
you are talking about.
it's, since you're an architect and with the Flora as well, there's a demand and supply, right? As far as labor is concerned for construction, and masons, for example, come from Rajasthan. A lot of them are kind of nomadic because it's not a permanent job. They make good money, okay, but it's not like job guarantee. One thing that you could do, particularly with Rajasthani people, is to set up like a mason training academy here, where they can come in, upgrade skill, maybe make a little more money, deliver more value to the contractor that they're tied up with. That's one thing. But typically when somebody comes in from out of Mumbai, into Mumbai, particularly out of Maharashtra state, they're coming in with a skill set already. If we can do a little bit of value addition, that's something we can look at, right? If someone is a long-term resident, there's so much that in vocational training that's happening that there are opportunities to then travel abroad. There's palliative care, there's stuff like that which is going to be India's own age. There's working with new technologies, working with EVs and retraining mechanics and stuff like that at a city scale. को सिखाओ, right? He or she is coming with some little skill set and some ambition and some vision plan कि ये करना है.
So now I may get your point, but your point also will be that how do you identify that skill set? You know, because if there's a Rajasthani guy coming in, but I'm building a glass building, so I don't need the Rajasthani guy. So what does he do? So I think that's a problem, and that's a good question in a way, because maybe I have no answer to it. But you know, the best thing is that if you develop this all over the country, then they don't have to leave their city. The minute that they're leaving their city means that that city is not sustainable, you know. And that's the whole point of this discussion, is that if you can build a community. So even though we're doing a hotel in Rajasthan, we've got employed a lot of people. We're still employing. It's still a developer who says that I want to pay the least amount to someone. Correct? So we may not still have the best guys on the job, and the best guys are still coming to Bombay to make money. Okay, so it'll have to be, so the ripple effect has to happen in every city for that. And I feel that if you're talking about the ripple effect in Bombay, then it should also help the community of Bombay first. What is the point of getting a Rajasthani artisan to come and do our work? I hope I'm not talking like some politician of Bombay, but you know, on a larger scale, if everyone helps everyone in their own, then only then it's sustainable. Otherwise, then the whole point is lost again.
So I'm also just going to try to address your question a little differently. And these are insights that I have really gotten through some years of research that I've done on some communities in Calcutta and in the historic neighborhoods of Calcutta. And I see a lot of that, those overlaps and similarities in Bombay as well. There is this dichotomy of what we understand as hand skills, craftsmen, artisans, which are the historic and the traditional artisans, right? Therefore, we firstly think of Rajasthan for that, yeah. But there is a very little or a very nascent imagination for understanding like urban crafts or industrial crafts. So like in Calcutta with the Bengal Renaissance and the whole book printing, when that came into existence and the printing presses, there's in any sort of urban context, there are always developments that take place which require new skill sets, which is also why people come to cities, right? Like there was no tradition of printing presses, book binding, book printing, all of that, and that came up as a new, it's not a traditional skill set, it's a result of the Industrial Revolution. Glass, stained glass, all of this, cast iron. Okay, there are a lot of urban industrial crafts which have also happened, which don't get that much focus when we think of craft. And therefore employability, how we build those guilds, how we nurture those guilds. So I found that there are guilds for practically every material in the small like alleys and neighborhoods of Calcutta. I haven't investigated to see whether such kinds operate here, and they have a complete structure which goes down to like the welfare of every worker who is maybe registered with that guild or not. So people are coming into the city, they are getting absorbed in a way, they are living and working within territories where, you know, they don't have to commute, etc., because it's not sustainable. What we're doing to them today, we're putting them in, you know, vertical slum on the periphery of the city and then expecting them to come to here to work. So they have an ecosystem, and these are the, so if we kind of focus on this small medium economy, which is really the local and the micro economy of any city, and not just, you know, the corporates and the startups, and then say that, because that is not where they fit. They fit in the small and medium economy of the city, which is the production backbone of really how our cities work. And we saw what happened in COVID, right? When everything shut down, these were the kind of communities and these were the kind of economies, whether it's the kirana wala to any other kind of service or that you required, the kind of people that were available for you to tap into as a resource. And this I found very strongly of, and even in Calcutta, I mean, my research showed that the bulk of the people who are working in this very historic area called Chitpur Road, most of them are migrants from UP and Bihar. They are not native Bengalis or native, even people from Bengal. So they're coming here, they're building some skill sets. Many times you don't come with the skill set, you cultivate it. You know, if you come and join a Smith, an ironsmith's foundry, and you are making some of the largest, you know, you go and see the turnover of that workshop. It's massive. And you, all the Tanishks, etc., are sending their, you know, jewelry for repair, etc., to some of the smallest workshops with the smallest, like, gold karigars in the narrowest alleys of these neighborhoods. But what is the livability of that area? What is the quality of life of that? And all of that is linked, right? Productivity, livability, economy. And if we are able to somehow we don't look at that. You know, it's like one invisibilized section we take for granted. कि वो आग लगता है तो वही लोग मरते हैं, building गिरता है तो वही लोग मरते हैं. But we don't look. There's no imagination for us to think of that segment of society. And if we're able to address this, then yes, there will be a parallel way where that we will begin to value this production, this productivity as well.
Thank you so much, guys. I think we are already past time. So if you all have any further questions, you can always send it to us, and we'll be very happy to forward it to our panelists here. Thank you so much for your time and for your lovely insights, and thank you for being such an amazing audience.